Admiral Krixtal of the Zephyrian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Doom, admiring his handiwork through the viewport. Where Earth's northern hemisphere used to be, there was now a lovely collection of glowing craters and radioactive dust clouds. Very artistic, really. "Excellent work, Admiral," chirped Commander Blurp, his tactical advisor, bouncing on his 6 legs with enthusiasm. "Another primitive species eliminated. That's what, the 47th this cycle?" 48th, Krixtal corrected, his 3 eyes gleaming with pride. "Though I must admit, this one was almost too easy. They didn't even have proper space defenses." The massive holographic display flickered to life, showing casualty reports. Numbers scrolled past in that satisfying way that made Krixtal's hearts flutter with joy. 99 million humans eliminated. Infrastructure destroyed. Resistance, well, there shouldn't be any resistance worth mentioning. "Sir," squeaked Ensign Glorb from the communications station, "we're receiving some strange signals from the planet's surface." Krixtal's middle eye rolled. Probably just death throes from the survivors. Nothing to worry about. But then the signals started getting translated, and Krixtal's confident smirk began to falter. The messages weren't pleas for mercy or surrender announcements. They were recruitment notices. "Attention all Delta Reapers," the first message read. "Code Black scenario is in effect. Report to designated rally points. Rules of engagement. There are no rules. Repeat, Geneva Convention is officially on vacation." "What in the 17 hells is a Delta Reaper?" Krixtal muttered. The second message was even more disturbing. "Silent Widow requests immediate battlefield intelligence. Preferred method of alien elimination. Surprise me." Commander Blurp's enthusiastic bouncing had stopped entirely. "Admiral, these don't sound like the messages of a defeated species." "Nonsense," Krixtal snapped, though his voice cracked slightly. "They're clearly in shock. Probably some kind of psychological defense mechanism." Then came the third message, and this one made Krixtal's scales turn a distinctly unhealthy shade of purple. "To whoever just ruined my morning coffee break by blowing up North America. You have awakened forces beyond your comprehension. We are not your typical planetary defense force. We are what happens when a species realizes that being civilized is optional. You wanted to meet humanity's demons? Congratulations. Class is now in session." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the sound of Krixtal's 3 hearts beating in increasingly panicked rhythm. "Sir," Glorb whispered, "long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They're organizing." Krixtal stared at the tactical display, watching as red dots began appearing across Earth's remaining continents. Not the scattered, chaotic pattern of a broken civilization, but the methodical, purposeful movement of something far more dangerous. "How many survivors could there possibly be?" he asked weakly. "Approximately 6 billion, sir." 6 billion, Krixtal repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "And we just killed 99 million of them." Commander Blurp had started nervously grooming his antennae. "Perhaps we should consider a strategic withdrawal? Regroup and reassess?" "Absolutely not," Krixtal declared, though his conviction sounded about as sturdy as a paper spaceship. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not retreat from primitives who don't even have faster-than-light travel." But as he watched the sensor reading, something cold settled in his stomach. The energy signatures weren't random. They were coordinated, purposeful, and they were growing stronger. "Sir," Glorb called out, "we're receiving a direct transmission. It's addressed to you personally." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was calm, almost grandfatherly. "Admiral Krixtal, I presume? This is Alana Voss. I believe you gentlemen have made a rather serious mistake." Captain Jake Ironjaw Murphy spat into the radioactive dust that used to be downtown Chicago and grinned. His cybernetic jaw clicked slightly as he surveyed the crater where his favorite bar used to be. "Well, boys and girls," he announced to his team, "looks like our vacation just got cancelled." Behind him, the Delta Reapers assembled with the casual efficiency of people who treated apocalyptic scenarios like minor inconveniences. Boom Boom Betty was already sorting through her collection of explosives, humming a cheerful tune while she selected the day's party favors. "Ooh, alien tech," she cooed, examining a piece of Zephyrian shrapnel. "I wonder if it plays well with C4. "Everything plays well with C4 in your hands," muttered Whisper Wilson, checking his rifle scope. At 6'5" and built like a scarecrow, Whisper had the unsettling ability to appear and disappear like a very polite ghost. "Question is, how many of these space tourists are we dealing with?" Gadget Garcia looked up from his tablet, where he was already reverse engineering alien technology from the debris. Sensors show about 50,000 hostiles in orbit. Standard invasion fleet configuration. 50,000? Murphy's grin widened. That's almost a fair fight. The team's laughter was interrupted by the arrival of Elena Voss, who appeared as if she'd simply walked around the corner rather than across several miles of radioactive wasteland. She was exactly what you'd expect from a 70-year-old grandmother, if your grandmother happened to be humanity's most efficient killing machine. "Boys," she said pleasantly, adjusting her knitting bag, "I do hope you're planning something appropriately educational for our visitors." Elena Murphy nodded respectfully. "Figured you'd want first crack at them." "How thoughtful. Though I must admit I'm rather irritated. They interrupted my sourdough starters feeding schedule." She smiled sweetly. "I may have to get creative with the consequences." Betty looked up from her explosives with genuine excitement. "Can we watch?" "Oh dear, I'm afraid my methods are rather personal. But don't worry, there should be plenty left for everyone." The thing about Earth's military, Murphy reflected as he watched his team prepare, was that it wasn't really a military at all. It was more like a collection of individuals who had been deemed too dangerous for civilian life and given official permission to channel their particular talents constructively. Take Whisper Wilson, for instance. The man could put a bullet through a playing card at 2,000 meters in a hurricane. Not because he was particularly skilled at math or wind calculations, but because he'd simply decided that physics was more of a guideline than a hard rule. Or Boom Boom Betty, whose relationship with explosives bordered on the romantic. She didn't just blow things up, she created symphonies of destruction that would make angels weep with joy. And Gadget Garcia, who looked at any piece of technology and immediately saw 17 different ways to weaponize it, usually involving creative violations of several fundamental laws of science. "So what's the plan, Cap?" Betty asked, shouldering a launcher that definitely hadn't been in any military manual. "Simple," Murphy replied, clicking his jaw thoughtfully. "We're going to teach these cosmic tourists about human hospitality, starting with an object lesson in why you should never, ever, mess with someone's morning coffee." Elena Voss smiled and began knitting. "I do so love educational opportunities." Above them, the alien fleet continued its lazy orbit, completely unaware that they had just awakened something that made their worst nightmares look like bedtime stories. "Gadget," Murphy called out, "how long before you can get us some alien party crashers?" "Give me 30 minutes and I'll have their shuttles landing wherever you want them." "Excellent. Betty, I want you to prepare a welcome committee, something with lots of fireworks." "Already on it, Cap. These alien materials are going to make such pretty colors." Whisper Wilson was already moving toward higher ground, his rifle case slung over his shoulder. "I'll take Overwatch. These space tourists are about to learn that Earth doesn't take kindly to uninvited guests." As the team dispersed to their tasks, Murphy allowed himself another grin. 99 million humans dead, and the aliens thought they'd won. They had no idea they'd just signed up for the most comprehensive education in applied human psychology ever administered. This was going to be fun. The Zephyrian peace envoy ship descended toward Earth's surface with all the confidence of a species that had conquered 47 worlds and never met meaningful resistance. Ambassador Flurble adjusted his ceremonial sash and practiced his magnanimous conqueror speech. Remember, he told his aide, we're being generous by offering them terms. Standard protocol, demand surrender, accept tribute, establish mining operations. The ship touched down in what used to be suburban Ohio, and Flurble stepped out expecting to find cowering survivors. Instead, he found Elena Voss, sitting in a lawn chair in front of a house that somehow hadn't been vaporized, knitting what appeared to be a sweater. "Oh, hello there," she said pleasantly, not looking up from her needles. "Are you the gentleman who've been making all that noise?" Flurble blinked his 4 eyes in confusion. This wasn't going according to any of his conquest manuals. "I am Ambassador Flurble of the Zephyrian Empire. I come bearing terms of surrender for your... Wait, how is your house still standing?" "Oh, that," Elena smiled. "I have excellent insurance. Would you like some tea?" "I what? No. I'm here to accept your planet's surrender." Elena finally looked up, and Flurble suddenly felt like a mouse that had just wandered into a tiger's den. "Surrender? Oh dear, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We don't surrender. We educate." 3 hours later, Ambassador Flurble's ship was found with its occupants neatly arranged in anatomically impossible positions, each wearing a small knitted tag that read Lesson 1, Mind Your Manners. Meanwhile, 50 miles away, the Delta Reapers were having their own educational session with the Zephyrian forward base. "Boom boom, you're up," Murphy announced, watching the alien encampment through his binoculars. Betty giggled and hefted her custom launcher. "I call this one Alien Surprise Delight. It's got a little bit of everything." The explosion that followed was less a detonation and more an artistic statement. Colors that had no names painted the sky while the Zephyrian base transformed into abstract art. The aliens who survived the initial blast stumbled around in confusion, their advanced tactical computers unable to process what they'd just witnessed. "What in the void was that?" screamed Commander Blurp over the comm channel. "I believe," came Admiral Crick's shaky voice, "that was what humans call getting their attention." Whisper Wilson settled into his sniper position 2 miles away, his scope trained on the chaos. To any reasonable observer, the shot he was about to take was impossible. The target was moving, partially obscured, and protected by energy shields that could deflect anti-ship weaponry. Whisper pulled the trigger. The bullet traveled in a path that seemed to mock several laws of physics, ricocheted off 3 different surfaces, that passed through what should have been an impenetrable force field, and somehow ended up embedded in the alien commander's weapon, which promptly exploded in a shower of sparks. "How?" the alien commander whispered, staring at his destroyed equipment. "Trade secret," Whisper murmured, already lining up his next impossible shot. Gadget Garcia, meanwhile, was having the time of his life with captured Zephyrian technology. He'd managed to hack their communications network using nothing but a smartphone, some copper wire, and what appeared to be a potato. "Hey Cap," he called out, "I've got control of their orbital defense grid. Want me to make them shoot at each other?" "Save it for the finale," Murphy replied, watching the alien survivors scatter in panic. "Let's not spoil the surprise." The thing about the Delta Reapers, he reflected, was that they'd been specifically recruited for their ability to think outside the box, way outside the box. In fact, the box was barely visible from where they operated. Take their current situation. Any normal military unit would approach this as a tactical problem requiring strategy, coordination, and careful planning. The Delta Reapers approached it as an opportunity for creative expression. "Whisper, how many of them are still moving?" 17. "But they're trying to call for backup." "Gadget, can you make their backup come to us instead?" "Already on it. I've convinced their fleet that this location is a high-value target requiring immediate reinforcement." Murphy's grin was sharp enough to cut glass. Excellent. Betty, prepare a proper reception committee. Ooh, can I use the new formula? The one that makes things bounce? Use whatever makes you happy. 30 minutes later, the Zephyrian reinforcements arrived to find their forward base had been transformed into what could only be described as a kinetic art installation. The few survivors were babbling about humans who didn't follow any logical rules of warfare. They came from directions that don't exist, one reported. Their explosives created geometric patterns. And their sniper shot around corners. Admiral Kriegstau listened to the reports with growing horror. This wasn't warfare. This was something far worse. This was humans having fun. Admiral Kriegstau stood in his command center, surrounded by the finest military minds the Zephyrian Empire had to offer, and tried to make sense of the tactical reports scrolling across his screens. Every piece of data contradicted every other piece of data, and none of it made any sense according to established military doctrine. Let me understand this correctly, he said slowly, his 3 eyes twitching with stress. A single human female, age 73, infiltrated Base 7 disguised as a cleaning lady and single-handedly eliminated an entire garrison of our elite troops using knitting needles? Yes, sir, Commander Blurp replied miserably. The survivors say she was very polite about it. She even left cookies. And Base 4 was destroyed by an explosive device that somehow created a musical composition in the key of B-flat. The troops are calling it the Alien Goodbye Symphony, sir. It's actually quite catchy. Kriegstau's middle eye began to twitch. What about the sniper reports? Those are problematic, sir. Our analysts insist that the ballistics are physically impossible. The bullets appear to be traveling through dimensions that don't exist. Show me. Me. The holographic display lit up with trajectory analyses that looked like abstract art. Lines curved in impossible directions, intersected with themselves, and somehow ended up exactly where they needed to be. According to our computers, Blurp continued, the human sniper's bullets are violating at least 6 fundamental laws of physics per shot. And our response? We've deployed our most advanced countermeasures. Quantum shields, probability scramblers, reality anchors. And? The bullets ignore them completely. Our chief scientist believes the human may have developed ammunition that simply doesn't care about science. Kriegstau slumped in his command chair. 47 worlds. 47 civilizations had fallen before the might of the Zephyrian Empire, and none of them had ever made him question the basic nature of reality. Sir, called out Ensign Glorb, we're detecting another energy signature from the planet's surface. It's the human with the explosives. What's she doing now? She appears to be teaching our captured equipment to dance, sir. The main screen shifted to show Boom Boom Betty in what used to be a Zephyrian weapons depot. She was surrounded by alien technology that was somehow moving in rhythmic patterns while producing harmonious tones. Every few seconds, something would explode in a burst of color that perfectly complemented the impromptu concert. She's weaponized music, Kriegstau whispered. How do you weaponize music? The same way you weaponize physics, apparently, Blurp replied. By ignoring the parts that don't work for you. Meanwhile, down on the planet's surface, Gadget Garcia was having his own philosophical discussion with Zephyrian technology. He'd connected his laptop to their quantum computer using what appeared to be a piece of string and a paper clip, and was now engaged in what could only be described as an argument with an artificial intelligence. Look, he said to the confused AI, I know you think you're unhackable, but you're thinking about this all wrong. You're trying to be secure when you should be trying to be helpful. That makes no logical sense, the AI responded. Exactly. That's your first mistake. Logic is just a suggestion. Now, let's talk about your orbital defense grid. 5 minutes later, the Zephyrian fleet's own weapon systems were targeting each other in what appeared to be a carefully choreographed dance routine. "Sir," Glorb reported, his voice cracking with strain, "our ships are. They're performing some kind of aerial ballet." "Make it stop." "We can't, sir. Our AI says it's enjoying the artistic experience." Captain Murphy, watching the show from his position in the ruins of Cleveland, nodded approvingly. "Gadget, I want you to know that what you just did there is probably a war crime in 17 different star systems." "Only 17? I'm getting rusty." The thing about fighting humans, Crix Tau was beginning to realize, was that they didn't just break rules. They took the entire concept of rules, fed it through some kind of madness filter, and produced something that worked perfectly while making no sense whatsoever. "Sir," Blurp said carefully, "perhaps we should consider negotiation?" "With whom? The grandmother who's turning our technology into performance art? The demolitions expert who's teaching our equipment to sing? The sniper who's apparently rewriting physics with every shot? Well, when you put it like that, get me a direct line to the surface. I want to speak to whoever's in charge of this madness." "That would be Captain Murphy, sir. But I should warn you, his psychological profile is concerning. More concerning than a pensioner who kills people with knitting needles." "He's the one who trained her, sir." Crix Tau felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. "He trained the grandmother?" "According to our intelligence, she was his first instructor, before she retired to pursue domestic hobbies." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle sounds of their own fleet's weapons systems serenading each other in the distance. "Open the channel," Crix Tau said quietly. "Admiral," came Murphy's cheerful voice, "I was wondering when you'd call. Ready to discuss terms?" "What terms?" "Well, that depends. Are you here to learn, or are you here to die? Because honestly, we're fine with either option." The final confrontation began when Elena Voss politely knocked on the airlock door of the Zephyrian flagship. She was carrying her knitting bag and wearing the kind of smile that made hardened criminals confess to crimes they hadn't committed. "Excuse me," she said to the security camera, "but I believe you gentlemen have something that belongs to me." "What could we possibly have that belongs to you?" Admiral Crix Tau's voice crackled through the intercom. "My planet's dignity," Elena replied sweetly. "I'd like it back, please." "How did you even get up here?" I asked nicely. "Your shuttle pilots are very accommodating once you explain things properly." On the bridge, Crix Tau stared at the security feed showing Elena standing calmly in the corridor, surrounded by unconscious Zephyrian guards who were arranged in neat rows like they'd simply decided to take a nap. "Let her in," he said finally. "Sir, are you certain that's wise?" Blurp. "At this point, I'm not certain anything is wise. But I'm very certain that keeping her in the corridor is unwise." Elena entered the bridge like she was visiting a friend's house, taking in the advanced alien technology with the same interest she might show a new recipe. "Oh, what a lovely ship. Very clean. I do appreciate good housekeeping." "You're here to surrender," Crix Tau said, though it came out more like a question. "Oh, heavens no. I'm here to conclude your education. You see, you've learned about human creativity, human ingenuity, and human persistence. But you haven't learned about human hospitality." "Hospitality?" "When someone visits your home uninvited and breaks your things, proper hospitality requires that you make them feel welcome. Forever." "Indeed." The bridge lights flickered, and Elena's smile never wavered. "Sir," whispered Commander Blurp, "the human Delta Reaper team has just boarded our ship." "How many?" "All of them, sir. They're not using the airlocks." "Then how are they getting in?" "Boom Boom Betty is making her own doors. Very artistic doors. And Whisper Wilson appears to be shooting through the hull without causing decompression." That's impossible. I've stopped saying that word, sir. It seems to encourage them. Captain Murphy's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. Attention, space tourists. Welcome to Earth's premier educational cruise. Today's lesson, why you should always RSVP before visiting someone's planet. The ship shuddered as Betty's artistic doors began appearing throughout the corridor system, each one accompanied by a small explosion that somehow formed the shape of a flower. She's decorating while she destroys, Glorb observed with a kind of horrified fascination. At least she has style, Elena said approvingly. I taught her that. Gadget Garcia's voice joined the ship's intercom. Hey, Admiral, I've been checking out your computer systems. Very impressive. Terrible security, though. I've taken the liberty of upgrading your AI's personality. What does that mean? The ship's AI suddenly spoke in what sounded like a cheerful grandmother's voice. Hello, dearies. I'm your new ship's computer, and I'm here to help you have the most educational experience possible. Would anyone like cookies? Make it stop, Krixtal whimpered. I'm afraid I can't do that, dear. My new programming prioritizes guest satisfaction above all else. Whisper Wilson materialized on the bridge through what appeared to be a solid wall, his rifle slung casually over his shoulder. Good evening, folks. Nice view you've got here. How did you walk through the wall? Trade secret. Something about believing really hard and having excellent timing. Elena had settled into the Admiral's chair and was knitting what looked like a small spaceship. I do hope you're all comfortable. We'll be traveling together for quite some time. Traveling where? Oh, all over the galaxy. You see, you're going to help us introduce ourselves to your neighbors. I'm sure they'll be very interested to meet the species that thought it was wise to attack Earth. Captain Murphy stepped onto the bridge through Betty's latest artistic entrance, his cybernetic jaw clicking with satisfaction. Outstanding work, everyone. Elena, how's our new tour guide doing? Admiral Krixtal is being very cooperative. Aren't you, dear? Krixtal looked around at his bridge, now occupied by humanity's most polite psychopaths, and realized that surrender wasn't really an option anymore. It was more like a career change. What do you want? He asked quietly. We want to make friends, Elena replied, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. And we want to make sure everyone in the galaxy knows that Earth is open for business, but closed for conquest. And if we refuse? Betty's cheerful voice came from somewhere in the ship's ventilation system. Then we'll have to get creative about our educational methods. And trust me, you don't want to see me get creative. I've seen her get creative, Murphy added helpfully. It's beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Elena finished her knitting and held up a perfect miniature replica of the Zephyrian flagship. There we go. Now, shall we discuss your new career in interstellar diplomacy? 6 months later, the Zephyrian Empire had been transformed into something that would have been unrecognizable to its former self. Admiral Krixtal, now bearing the title of Chief Cultural Liaison, stood before the Galactic Council wearing a small knitted badge that read Earth's Friend, in 17 different languages. And that, he concluded his presentation, is why the Galactic Council should immediately classify Earth as a protected cultural preserve and establish a minimum safe distance of no less than 50 light-years for all military vessels. The assembled representatives from across the galaxy murmured amongst themselves. The Vorthan delegate raised a tentacle. Are you saying that a single planet defeated the entire Zephyrian Empire? Defeated? Krixtal laughed, a sound that had developed a slightly hysterical edge over the past months. They didn't defeat us. They adopted us. There's a difference. Explain. But when you're defeated, you lose your ships, your territory, your freedom. When you're adopted by humans, you keep all those things, but you also gain a new perspective on the fundamental nature of reality. Which is That everything you thought you knew about warfare, physics, and common sense is more like a rough guideline than actual law. The crystalline hegemony's representative chimed in with a sound like breaking glass. But surely their military can't be that formidable. They don't even have faster-than-light travel. They don't need it, Kriegstau replied. They have Elena Voss. A collective shudder ran through the chamber. Elena's reputation had spread across the galaxy faster than most species could achieve light speed. She was now known as the knitting grandmother of death, and her image was used to frighten misbehaving alien children into good behavior. She's retired, Kriegstau continued, but she still takes consulting jobs. Last week, she helped the Barathian pirates understand the error of their ways. They're now running a very successful bakery in the Andromeda sector. And the Delta Reapers? Still looking for new challenges. They've started a consulting firm called Applied Human Psychology. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can probably blow it up in a way that teaches valuable life lessons. The Galactic Council's Supreme Arbiter, a being of pure energy who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, spoke in a voice like cosmic wind chimes. And what of Earth's current status? They've established what they call the Galactic Friendship Initiative, Kriegstau explained. The basic principle is that any species that approaches Earth with peaceful intentions will be welcomed with open arms and probably invited to dinner. Any species that approaches with hostile intentions will be educated about the benefits of pacifism through direct, hands-on experience. And this education is effective? The Kragnor Horde converted their entire battle fleet into a mobile arts and crafts festival after 3 days of instruction from Boom Boom Betty. They now travel the galaxy teaching advanced flower arranging. The Supreme Arbiter's energy field flickered with what might have been amusement. And what does Earth want from the galaxy? Nothing, Kriegstau replied. That's the terrifying part. They don't want territory, resources, or tribute. They just want to be left alone to pursue their hobbies. Unfortunately, their hobbies include things like creative problem-solving and making friends with everyone whether they want to be friends or not. How do we avoid education? Simple. Don't attack Earth. Don't threaten Earth. Don't even think hostile thoughts about Earth while you're in the same star system. And if you do encounter humans in space, remember that they consider interstellar warfare a recreational activity. The session was interrupted by a cheerful voice from the gallery. I hope I'm not late. Elena Voss had appeared in the chamber wearing a floral dress and carrying a plate of cookies. How she had bypassed the Council's security, crossed 17 light-years of space, and entered the most secure building in the galaxy was a mystery that no one really wanted to solve. Elena, Kriegstau said, his voice filled with the kind of respectful terror usually reserved for natural disasters. What brings you to the Galactic Council? Oh, I just wanted to make sure everyone was getting along nicely, she replied, offering cookies to the various delegates, and to invite you all to Earth's first annual interstellar potluck dinner. We're having it next month in what used to be the Zephyrian invasion fleet. What's a potluck dinner? Asked the crystalline hegemony representative. It's where everyone brings a dish to share, and we all get to know each other better. It's going to be lovely. Captain Murphy is bringing his famous chili, and Betty has promised to make her exploding birthday cake. Exploding cake? Oh, it's perfectly safe. It only explodes into confetti and sparkles. Usually. The Supreme Arbiter's energy field pulsed thoughtfully. And if we decline this invitation? Elena's smile never wavered. Oh, I'm sure you won't decline. After all, it's so much nicer when people choose to be neighborly on their own. The implicit threat in her polite words sent another collective shudder through the chamber. Motion to establish Earth as a protected cultural preserve, the Supreme Arbiter announced. All in favor. The vote was unanimous. Wonderful. Elena exclaimed, clapping her hands together. I'll let the others know. They'll be so pleased. Oh, and Admiral Crixtal, could you help me with the seating arrangements? I want to make sure everyone sits next to someone they'll get along with. As the Galactic Council hastily adjourned and the various delegates hurried away to update their species policies regarding Earth, Crixtal found himself alone with Elena in the empty chamber. How do you do it? He asked quietly. Do what, dear? Make the entire galaxy afraid of one little planet. Elena smiled and began knitting what appeared to be a small spacecraft. Oh, we're not scary, Admiral. We're just enthusiastic. There's a difference. And what's that? Scary implies malicious intent. We're never malicious. We're just very, very thorough in our approach to making friends. As she walked away, leaving Crixtal alone with his thoughts and a plate of surprisingly delicious cookies, he realized that perhaps the most terrifying thing about humans wasn't their capacity for violence or their disregard for physics. It was their genuine belief that everyone in the galaxy could be their friend, whether they wanted to be or not. And they were usually right.